Welcome to Alas, Vine and Hitchens. I am Sarah Vine.
And she is Sarah Vine, and I am Peter Hitchens.
And this week, Peter is saluting the flag, and I shall be asking whether the answer to illegal migration is a stint in the army. We'll be back after this. Welcome to Alas, Vine and Hitchens. I am Sarah Vine.
And I am Peter Hitchens.
And this week we're starting with Peter's topic, which is flags.
It's extraordinary how people get worked up about rectangles of coloured cloth.
Yes.
And yet they do.
Yes.
Enraged cries of racist when people haul up St George's crosses, claims indeed that our own national flag, the Union Jack. And don't tell me it's called the Union flag. It isn't. It's perfectly reasonable to call it the Union Jack. It's accepted by the Admiralty. Anybody who wants to complain about me calling it the Union Jack should write to the British Association of Pedants, not to me. You're wrong. I have to get that in.
The Union Jill.
Otherwise, what?
Could it be the Union Jill if it was a lady flag?
No. But in fact, that was terrible. But
sorry.
Anyway, there it is. The Union Jack is a flag which has been many times in recent years denounced as racially bigoted. And people,
yes, well, there was that child that wore one to school and got chucked out, wasn't it?
Yes, she was chucked out. It's never really been explained why. And there were, of course, rather horrible, not very big political movements which had used both the Union Jack and the St George's Cross as their symbols, but it seems to me to be big enough to survive that. You can use a flag, but if you're not important and if you're nasty, the flag can survive that use. But why do we care so much about them? One of the things about this country I really, really love is in the old chapels of ancient cathedrals hanging high above in the afternoon light, you can see very, very thin ancient flags that were carried into battle perhaps 200 years ago. So thin that the light comes straight through them. And it reminds you, first of all, how old everything is in these places, and also that there is a living tradition to which we belong, in which ancestors of ours went out and fought for sometimes good and sometimes bad causes, and the flags commemorate those. And I think it is the fact the flags commemorate acts of bravery, which I think is always a virtue, whether in bad causes or good, that makes us so attached to them. And we get worried when people want to take them away from us or restrict their use. And the more unsettled and insecure a country is, the more flags become important. They go to Northern Ireland to see that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I always thought flags were meant to be... I mean, I'm probably wrong about this, but I thought the origin of flags was in battle, so that you knew where your side was. So because you had the flag bearer, wasn't
I think that is its origin.
And that was incredibly...
There's the wonderful verse in the Song of Solomon, terrible is an army with banners. That's from 300 BC. Yeah. People were using flags as identifiers in battle even then. And you'll see pictures sometimes, it's certainly as late as the Battle of Jutland in 1916, of the Royal Navy and its ships carrying these enormous battle flags, 40 feet by 20 feet, to make sure that that their own side didn't shoot them. And they are also extremely impressive. There's something about them and about their size.
Yes, they're sort of iconic, aren't they? They're just big and they sort of stand up above everything else.
Strange way, big guns. As
and I always find it very moving when flags fly at half-mast. I think there's something incredibly sort of moving and tear-making about that. It's a symbol of identity, really, isn't it? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. On the Westway at the moment, there's one of the houses that you drive past, and they've got about 6 Palestinian flags up, big ones, big Palestinian, which is completely fine. I mean, it's just a flag. It's not a dangerous thing. And I don't understand why it's fine to have those, but not fine for people to have their St George's crosses or their sulphurs or whatever. Sorry?
It's obvious hypocrisy that some local authorities...
Did you see that hilarious man in Birmingham who went around painting all the roundabouts as the St George's Cross?
No, I didn't see it.
He was quite funny. He was going around, and the little sort of bits of, the little sort of kind of nipples that you get on roundabouts. He was sort of
never thought of them in that way.
Well, they're big nipples, I suppose. Maybe they're not nipples; they're little lumps. Anyway, he was painting them as St George's crosses, and I thought it was quite interesting because Birmingham, as you know, has had a terrible rubbish problem for several months now. But for some reason, the council were able to muster someone to go and paint over all of the St George's crosses that he'd painted. So it's quite interesting priorities.
It's always interesting what the priorities
are. But I think flags are quite romantic, aren't they?
To me.
And some flags are really very beautiful. I mean, there's some very incredibly complicated flags, you see.
I think most modern flags look like ice creams.
I mean, I'm not terribly keen, to be honest, I'm not terribly keen on the Union Jack just because I don't really like the colours.
It's tremendous. It's a very intricate flag.
It is quite an intricate flag,
It's very clever when you look at how it's been assembled from the three different crosses.
I mean, I just don't like it aesthetically, but they're not my colours. But
there aren't very few flags have got the same complexity or interest. They're almost all, as I say, they're either vertical ice creams or horizontal ice creams, and they do little for me. Whereas ours it's fundamentally Christian because of the three crosses, all of saints.
That's true. Yeah, I do like the American flag.
It's okay.
No, I think
but they keep
fabulous.
changing it. Every time they
add a new territory.
They haven't lost any yet, but it could happen.
What's the Russian flag?
The Russian flag at the moment is another ice cream. It's white, blue, and red.
Oh, okay, all right.
And not particularly distinguished or
the Italian flag is a Neapolitan ice cream.
It's an ice cream, as you rightly say.
Exactly.
Greek flag is reasonable.
I quite like don't the Albanians have quite a good flag?
It's
got a dragon on it or something like that, I think.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Well, the Welsh have got a good flag. We've got a dragon on ours.
Dragons are always good.
It's good to have a dragon on your flag.
Your point about them being for identification in battle is important. In fact, I have one, not battle, but how should I say, combat zone experience of this. When I was in Somalia, fleeing from Mogadishu, which had recently been invaded by the U.S. Marines. We were in a very shabby truck with a bunch of Somali bodyguards with AK-47s rattling through the Somali countryside trying to find a place where we could fly out from. And just overhead, a U.S. Marine helicopter fixed on us and started circling above. And circling. And my companion, a fantastic man called John Downing, now alas no longer with us, great photographer, huge experience, calmly produced from his bag quite a large and well-used Union Jack, which he waved at the U.S. Marine helicopter until it went away. And he said he many times found it useful.
It had come in handy.
He always carried it with him.
Yeah,
and it was nothing to do.
And of course,
nothing to do with demonstrative anything. It was just a good way of telling people, no, we're not them.
But symbols are very powerful, aren't they? If you think of the swastika, if you think of the Second World War, because all the planes used to have, not flags, but identifiers, didn't they? I mean, these things are all quite emotive because they're rooted in conflict, and that's always quite sort of emotional.
Yeah, and the way they fly in the wind has quite a powerful effect on the mind. As I say, I think people should be very careful with them because, as with a lot of symbols, you think it's just a thing, and it turns out to have attachments in people's minds. But it has grown in my lifetime. There was very little flying of Union Jacks in my childhood. You didn't see them about, and
you
also
didn't need them.
British and English were by and large interchangeable words.
Yes.
And if you look at film and photographs of the crowds at the 1966 World Cup final, they're mostly carrying Union Jacks. Yeah. There are a few St George's crosses, but the idea that it had to be the English flag for an English team was not common. And then Scottish nationalism came along, and the troubles in Northern Ireland came along, and the country began to break up. And the more it breaks up, I think the more sensitive people are about the flag.
Yes, I always think of the Palio of Siena, where they have lots of different flags based on the quarters.
They're parish flags, are they?
They're parish flags, but they're equally sort of emotive, important. People get very wound up about them if you wear the wrong one. It's like they are very powerful symbols.
I mean, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd fly a flag from my own house.
No.
Well, not in Britain, but when I lived in the United States, a very nice, rather liberal suburb of Maryland, every one of my neighbours had a Stars and Stripes flying from their porch. So I went and got a Union Jack, and being a guest in a foreign country, I asked my landlords. I said, "Do you mind if I fly the flag of my country from my porch?" They said, "No, not in the slightest. You can fly anything you like as long as it's not the Confederate battle flag."
Why, is that illegal?
No, they just hated it.
They just hated it. I tell you what I don't like is
much more. The Civil War is the most important war in American history. It's much more important than any foreign war they've ever had.
I don't like flags in windows. So I hate it when you see people who've put flags up in their
Why?
sort of... I think they need to fly.
Maybe people haven't got anywhere to fly them from. Have you
I
thought
just
of
don't
that?
like them in windows. I think they're just very unaesthetic. I just don't think they look very nice. I don't think it's fair for a flag to be stuck on a window.
But what if that's all you have?
I don't know. I just think it's just...
What if you want to assert your national
I mean, buy a
pride?
flagpole.
But where can you put it?
Stick it out of your window.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that's a fair
Have you ever put a flag on your bicycle?
Certainly not.
Well, it's quite a good, would be a good sight. Excellent sight.
No, I don't think. Apart from anything else, it would increase the wind resistance, which is never a good thing on a bicycle.
But you probably would never get run over because people would see you coming.
On the contrary, if people see me coming, I'm much more likely to get run over. It's much better for people not to realise who I am until after I've gone by.
So if it was a flag, if you did have a flag on your bicycle, it would be a Union Jack.
I suppose so.
Yes.
Yes. I suppose I could annoy people by flying a Cornish flag because, as I've sometimes explained to you, I am in fact Cornish.
Of course. What is the Cornish flag?
It's
is it
black
a giant
and white.
clam?
I think is it a white cross on a black background or the other way around?
Well, that sounds quite
never
glamorous.
remember. It's very austere.
Is it
like
sort of
Cornwall.
pirate-like?
No, that's the skull and
That's a good. You could have that flag.
That's really reserved for submariners in the modern world. You know they do. They fly when they've sunk a ship. They will come back into port, or they used to. It's probably not allowed now. They come back into port flying skull and crossbones.
Really?
Oh yes.
Well, when they've sunk a ship, like in a battle,
it was never considered the British.
Is it a pirate flag? It's a pirate flag.
It is a pirate flag. There aren't any pirates anymore. So
are there not? I thought there were lots in Somalia.
Oh, it was supposed to.
Was that just a rumour?
Off the coast of, yes. But I don't think they fly the skull and crossbones. Not that kind of pirate, not sort of Blackbeard type pirates.
Well, yeah, I think everyone should be able to fly a flag if they want to. I do. It doesn't offend me.
At the border of North and South Korea, they have, at the demilitarized zone, they have a flag competition. The North and the South, for several years, they built higher and higher flagpoles. They looked like a radio transmitting mast and bigger flags. And they were so big that, and this still happens, that in a high wind they just ripped to pieces. And eventually, it was one of the very few things they came to an agreement about. They actually made a treaty that I think the North Korean flag could be bigger if the South Korean flag could be higher.
Honestly,
that's how it fits. It is the most wonderful place to visit. I can't tell you what an amazing place
so childish, isn't it?
It is. But
that is the most childish thing I've ever heard.
Well, there you are.
And it's two nations. Is there still a flag on the moon?
Well, who would have taken it down?
I don't know.
Even Birmingham Council can't get up there.
You never know. And on that note, we'll be back after the break. Welcome back. This is Alas, Vine and Hitchens. And I had a good email from a man called Steve Bullen. And he says, would a possible disincentive to illegal channel crossings be compulsory conscription into our diminishing armed forces once those people land here? What say you? And I thought this was a good topic for discussion. What do you think, Peter?
I think it lacks several important features as an idea.
Well, I can see why you say that. I'm
of a practical bent.
Yeah, no, I know you are a practical bear. But let's just park your practical hat for a second. And so, okay, well, that's the end of the conversation then, really, isn't it?
I mean, it is.
No, but
these people, they don't speak the same language. They don't have, as far as we know, any loyalty to the country. How are you going to turn them into efficient soldiers?
Well, exactly, and also the army
exhausting
the army wouldn't want them. I don't think
the army would hate the idea.
Yes,
completely hate the idea.
Absolutely, yes.
The army hates the idea of conscription anyway.
It really does, because the last thing the army wants is to have to train up a load of sort of scallywags to do.
Well, scallywags are one thing, but people, as I say, they don't speak the language. They don't have any known loyalty to the country.
No.
And how are you going to turn them into a disciplined fighting force?
Well, I don't know, but that might put them off, I suppose. Maybe that's what Steve thinks.
I think if they're prepared to do what they've already done to get here, I think a stint in
And the
His
British
Majesty's Armed Forces
it's
would
not
probably
going to
be seen as a minor obstacle. After all, they get paid and fed.
Well, the thing
And
is-
you can imagine the efforts that would be made to make sure they were fed the sort of things that they were useful and follow the sort of religion they follow. And all. This is Britain, after all, modern Nazi Britain. They would be, in the army, they'd have to be treated with all the respect due. So I don't see that. They see that as a particular obstacle. And then at the end of it, no one could say, well, you can't stay here. You've not done anything with the country. No, on the contrary, I've served in His Majesty's Armed Forces.
But I'm not
sure this one has. I don't think he's thought it through.
But I think the thing is, it's a sort of self-selecting group, because if you're prepared to do what you have to do to get here illegally, then you're pretty tough cookie, aren't you?
They are tough, yeah.
And pretty ruthless, pretty tough. So maybe they would make quite good soldiers.
Well, if that were all you needed, soldiers,
we could form a mercenary army.
Was toughness and hire it out.
To people.
Well, maybe things will come to that, but I think that would be a sad fate for.
It would be a sad fate
for us to come to. I mean, it raises the question: what can you do apart from putting them in hotels in Epping?
Well, I mean, it's a better idea than putting them in hotels in Epping.
No, it's as bad an idea as putting them in hotels in Epping in a different way, in my view. I mean, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to deter them from coming?
Well, you're trying to, yes, I suppose you're trying to deter them from coming. And then if they do insist on coming, then you're trying to make them do something useful rather than sitting around in hotels in Epping. By the way, they're not sitting around in hotels in Epping.
But there are other useful things people could do rather than being trained for the armed forces. I mean, there are lots of things, filling in potholes and stuff like that.
Well, they're not allowed to do that, are they?
Well, they should be allowed to do it.
Yes, so do you think that illegal migrants should be allowed to work if they were working for the council, say, for example?
Well, I honestly don't know how you could work this. I mean, I think that the thing is impossible. I think what's been discovered is that as long as the wind isn't blowing, a sea border is indefensible against civilians. You can defend it against an armed attack, because against an armed attack you can deploy armed force. But if civilians seek to cross a sea border, then you can do nothing about it without immediately falling foul of about 19 different bits of international law.
Yeah.
And the ingenuity. There are two things that might be done: find out how much the French would actually take to stop them at their border, because land borders are much more easily defensible than sea borders.
Haven't we already given them 70 million or something?
I don't know how much. I just don't know how much. Either you have to do that, or you have to ingeniously turn it into a simulated land border by finding a way of constructing a fence in it that people can't. That's not offensive. That doesn't kill people. But is simply a barrier which cannot be crossed by people coming across the sea. Which would be astonishingly expensive and difficult to maintain and difficult to do. But it's fascinating to me, having been down there to that bit of coast. Basically, we have an open door on our south coast.
Absolutely.
And people will come through, and they've learnt this thing. They've learnt the same thing about the Mediterranean. You can cross it, and once people have learnt that, the old psychological barrier of the sea has gone.
Yeah,
and the measures which you could use against an armed invader are unavailable to you, because they're obviously completely inhumane and unacceptable, not just under international law, but generally in normal human charity. But if you just said, here, there's a fence now, which we've somehow or other floated in the sea and stretching deep into the water, you can't. If you can cross the channel if you like, but you can't get past it. Then that might work. If you can do that, some of the Eastern European countries are now building very substantial fences of the
sea fences.
Oh, actual fences, actually.
But in the actual sea?
No. On the land.
On land.
But what they do, but they no. I think Poland, for instance, is finding it quite effective now, building fences on the Belarusian border.
Yes, I saw that Donald Trump is painting his
fence black. They hadn't previously bothered much, but you can. I mean, fences. No fence is completely impregnable. But it does make it much, much more difficult. And as I say, a sea fence of some kind might ultimately be the answer. I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I still think Rwanda might have worked, but it is a grave difficulty once people have realised that the sea is only a psychological barrier. It's not a physical one.
But I think that what Steve's trying to say is that if they're going to come anyway, which you've just said they are going to do, then why not make them do something useful when they get here?
Well, there is that.
Rather than just sort of stick them in hotels and then let them get completely furious and angry and frustrated, which is what happens, and then they go out and do silly things.
But then immediately you come up against,
and then you're
all these
it,
things, the enormous apparatus of a legal system entirely taken over by left liberal ideas and the Human Rights Act.
And also it's not really fair on people who do come here legally, because why should they not have the same advantages, etc., blah.
Well, I know, but and also there's how do you run? If you said, right, what we'll do is we won't put them in hotels and we won't put them in houses. We will build camps in which they can be retained.
Refugee camps,
until
effectively,
their fate had been sorted out. Well, first of all, in a lot of cases, their fate never will be sorted out because they've thrown away their passports. And are we going to keep them there forever?
No, quite.
Secondly, it's very, very difficult in confined circumstances to keep people healthy and well fed, and particularly if there are any children involved, in a civilized fashion. The ultimate aim must be to stop them coming in the first place.
I don't think that's ever going to happen, just because I think the geopolitics of it are just set now, and I think people are just going to keep coming to this part of the world.
Well, then the patent Hitchens sea fence may be the answer. And you may laugh now,
I don't.
but
yes.
it is once you've been down there and looked and seen.
Yeah.
And there's this extraordinary feeling of openness.
Yeah.
Here I used to view the sea as, I lived by the sea in my childhood, and it was a protection. You thought nothing can come across this. And I genuinely thought that, and would go down to the beach and look out, and it was a wonderful feeling of security. I don't have that anymore when I go to the south coast of this country.
No,
it's
but
gone.
also
and what's gone is nothing has physically changed. The weather may have got slightly calmer, but beyond that, the only thing which has changed is the border which existed was in the minds of people, not in.
So what you're saying is, what you would do is push back, build a fence across the whole of the Channel landing, effectively the whole of the south coast. You'd just build a massive fence. And then what, you'd sort of just put dogs and guns on it?
You wouldn't put anything on it, really. You just have patrol.
Wouldn't they then just set up camp on the other side of the fence?
We have to set up camp in the sea.
Well, I mean, on the beach, effectively.
I don't know what the technology would be. I don't believe it would be beyond anybody to construct a pretty fence which would be reasonably storm resistant and pretty high above the level of the water, and also pretty deep under the water as well.
Wouldn't they all just sort of sail into it and then fall out of their dinghies and then just be rescued by the Coast Guard?
Well, they might be rescued, but we wouldn't rescue them because it would
be behind the wrong side of the fence.
Someone else might rescue them. They have to take them somewhere else, because unless they had permission to pass through it, then they couldn't. I'm just really thinking aloud here.
No, it's pretty difficult. It's a terrible quandary.
I don't think it's beyond the wit of man.
And I do think also
it can't be something which on contact with harm people.
No,
it just has to be
an electrified
there.
Fence.
No, you couldn't have nothing of that rubbish. But it can't. The only thing that it does is it passively sits there, and you cannot, without considerable effort, get past it. And if you're in a rubber dinghy, you're unlikely to be able to get past it. So in the end, people won't go. It's only a thought, but
it's quite interesting because it feeds into this next question,
take it more seriously as time's gone by.
And also the other thing about the Rwanda thing is that if you haven't really thought very hard about the problem, Rwanda seems like a sort of extreme solution. But if you sit down really carefully and think about the problem, Rwanda starts to seem like a sort of, like a vaguely sensible solution.
I thought it was extremely humane.
Yeah.
I thought it was very carefully thought out.
Yeah.
I thought what everybody was trying to do was to replicate what the Australians did. Now, you try and enter Australia illegally, you're stopped and you're taken somewhere else, and you can never, ever legally enter Australia for the rest of your life. And the place that you're taken to, you're not confined there. You can go home if you want to, but you can't go to Australia.
No, quite.
And that's what they were trying to replicate. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
No, it is. It does now seem like a sort of, with hindsight, it seems like
Australia just has more sea to play with than we do.
Yeah. Well, this sort of feeds into this question, a very long question here from Jonathan Roper. which I shall read out. I note that you have written and commented on Shamima Begum frequently, but not that I have noticed in the past year or so. I remember you made arguments in support of bringing her back, which I understand to be 1. We should show mercy as she was young and stupid, although this should not preclude her from facing charges. 2. A Minister of State should not have removed British citizenship, in her case, because her citizenship elsewhere was more theoretical than practical, and she certainly wasn't Bangladeshi's problem. I have never heard you make what I think is the more powerful argument that the descendants of immigrants born and brought up in this country can have their citizenship removed with a stroke of the Foreign Secretary's pen, which is not a punishment that can be applied to those without a second nationality available to them. Thus, the children of immigrant parents can't always be assured of permanent citizenship. NB, I only refer to second and subsequent generations, not to those who have been awarded rather than inherited British citizenship. As a tongue-in-cheek example, I understand your mother was French, and if she still held French nationality at the time of your birth, then you, your children and grandchildren all have an option of French citizenship. So theoretically, you and your family could legally be exiled to France, should David Lammy desire it, which I'm sure he does, and he alone believes it's conducive to the public good. Should a Minister of State alone have the power to revoke British citizenship of a second and subsequent generation immigrant born, educated and brought up in Britain, where a second citizenship is theoretically available? Is my argument one that either of you have considered, and do you think it's valid? Furthermore, do you both still hold the same opposing views about keeping Shamima Begum in exile? Yours sincerely, Jonathan Roper. P.S. I also request that you continue to be rude about David Lammy and politicians in general if they deserve it, despite the risk to you and your descendants being exiled to France.
No, I have exactly the same opinions. I think it's completely lawless to deprive someone of citizenship, and it is also merciless. And it's a limitless punishment of the kind which no civilized country should impose on anybody. It offers no possibility for redemption and amendment of life. And also, I just don't think it's constitutionally tolerable that a mere minister, and we all know that the word minister means servant, or we ought to, should be able to take an action of this kind. And I thought pathetic of the courts of England to accept it. I thought that the whole
I disagree. I think
judges increasingly seem to me to be civil servants in wigs. They don't seem to have any independence of thought from government at all. They should have thrown it out, regardless of anything else, because it just simply was beyond the powers that any government in a civilized free country should have. Depriving people of citizenship, if they have other citizenship, is one thing. Making someone stateless, which is what they have done with her, is another. It's the sort of thing the Soviet Union used to do.
Yes, I think her case is. I think she's very much a sort of designed to be an example. She's been made an example of.
But that's what the criminal justice system is for. If they've got a charge against her, then I'd be the first person to say, okay, then make it and try her. And if she's found guilty, then she should be punished according to law. But this is an increasing use of lawless, in my view, penalties by the government. There is another case which greatly exercises me and exercises, as far as I can discover, nobody else in this country, of a not very nice man called Graham Phillips, who is currently living a completely destitute life in Russian-occupied Ukraine. He's been sanctioned so that he cannot receive payments from anybody. Nobody can pay him. He can't even legally pay his own council tax on his home in London. He can't earn any money. He lives in a derelict flat in a largely derelict city. His neighbours took pity on him last winter and put glass in the windows of it. If he wants to take a bath, he puts a cast iron bath in the courtyard. He fills it by buckets with water. He then puts chunks of wood underneath it and sets fire to them and burns them under the bath until the water is warm enough to have a bath.
What's he
it's
done?
a sort of Robinson Crusoe life. What he's done is not clear because the official charge against him is, I think, destabilizing Ukraine.
Right.
Which, as far as I know, is not.
Is he British citizen?
He is a British citizen. He has no other citizenship. He is the only person who has ever been subject to this in these circumstances. Every other person sanctioned has had dual citizenship. So, for instance, they will sanction freely, say, the governor of some Russian province who they don't like. It doesn't make any difference to him because he never comes here. In the case of Graham Phillips, he's actually he's banned from living.
Do you think that there may be?
It's appalling.
Do you think that in his
thing they
case,
now do, and he tried to take them to court about it,
but obviously,
and the courts again, civil servants in wigs, it just simply threw it out and allowed the government to proceed in this way, and he has no recourse.
But do you think that perhaps he and Shamima, maybe there is intelligence on both of those individuals that cannot be divulged for a variety of reasons, similar sort of situation to the Afghanistan translators and all of that kind of stuff, that is just so overwhelming. That
Don't try them in camera. If they have evidence against them, there are provisions for. And good heavens, they were used in the Lucy Lepley case.
Right.
You can have confidential witnesses. You can have sessions in camera, and if they have charges against them which they believe are of that nature, they should do. But no one has ever suggested this. It's not been suggested that this is so in either case.
I think it's been suggested in the Begum case.
Very vaguely, but the fact remains that if you want to try her, she has to come back here.
Yeah.
And if she's,
I don't think there's any.
She's punished, she has to be punished here. That is what justice entails. And these are excuses. I also, in a long life of journalism, I've learned totally to mistrust all hints of, oh, well, if only you knew, if only you'd seen the papers. It's almost always the most disgraceful bilge, and no journalist should ever accept it. If they've got evidence, they have ways of using it.
Do you think with Begum that do you think there's any merit in the argument that if you go and join a terrorist organisation such as the one that she joined, and you take part in the things that she took part in, that you sort of forfeit your right to be a British citizen?
On the contrary, I think your position as a British citizen is, as it were, intensified because your government has the duty to arrest, charge and prosecute you for these alleged offences, and if found guilty, to punish you for them. I don't think it doesn't excuse us for it. If they had such evidence against her, then they should act on it.
What is the situation with her now? Do you know?
As far as I know, she's still there.
She's still there.
Yeah, rotting in some camp. I don't know. Now that we have the Syrian government of our choice, run by Al Qaeda, maybe things are different. Right. I don't know. I mean, our policy in all this is so completely contradictory and drivelling that it's very hard to tell.
I think it's also very hard.
For certain, making someone stateless, which all this stuff about her Bangladeshi citizenship is just so empty. Making someone stateless is just the act of
But why is the stuff about her Bangladeshi
state,
citizenship empty? Isn't she?
She's never been there. She has no relation with the place. They say they wouldn't take her in,
right?
If asked, it's just empty. It's just an excuse. And I don't think, I mean, a third world country could make that sort of excuse for behaving this way. A supposedly law-governed country and the home of the mother of parliaments and the presumption of innocence cannot, in my view, behave like this without diminishing itself.
She's I think she's a very divisive figure. And I think partly to do with the fact that no one could quite believe what she did.
Well, I don't know what she did, and until I've seen evidence in court about it, I will continue not to know. But as I say, if she's done something criminal, then I don't in any way oppose her being prosecuted and punished for it. But taking someone's citizenship away is not an act of justice.
It's not the way to do it.
It's an act of arbitrary punishment, which anybody who's interested in human liberty has to be against.
Another one. I've got long emails here today.
Because they get long answers.
They get long answers. I have been aware for some time of Peter's valid criticisms of the UK education system and the calls to reinstate grammar schools. I am a teacher in a SEMH school, and we receive hundreds of referrals a year from local authorities who take pupils with a whole range of additional learning needs. What has become apparent in my experience and speaking to parents and children is the inability of the comprehensive system to provide good quality education for students with even the mildest of additional learning needs. Bridget Phillipson's attempted reforms to try and bring SEMH education under the comprehensive umbrella again are almost certainly doomed to fail. There is a huge reason why there are so many alternate provisions and independent schools cropping up around the country. I do propose wholesale changes to a system that is clearly unfit for purpose. A move away from the comprehensive system to a system in which we have free state grammar schools for the academic, good technical/vocational schools for the practically minded, and flexible alternative provisions for those additional needs will provide much stronger outcomes. We can't persist with this selection by wealth system and keep putting learners in the same box and expecting things to improve. Kind regards, Harry.
Well, here.
Yes.
And it's noticeable, I should say, that I think all the German-speaking countries in Europe have the sort of system which Harry mentions pretty much along those lines, and how much more successful they all are, how much less class prejudiced they are, how much better educated they are than we are, because I believe because of that. And the only educational reform in human history that I know of which involved the actual deliberate destruction of acknowledged good schools in the faint hope that after they'd gone, something better would be created, is the one which we embarked on in 1965. It's been very, very effective in destroying the good schools. As in, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Yes,
well, and the one that we're currently
I can
embarking
see your
on.
broken eggs, but where's your bleeping omelette?
But also, I think the one that this government is currently embarking on, which is basically going to push all minor public schools out of business.
Oh, it's already doing it. And a very well-regarded school near Oxford, Our Ladies in Abingdon, was just shut abruptly a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And bang.
And all these children are going to end up in the public sector, and there's no provision for them there. So, and I think a lot of people, Harry talks about children with special needs. A lot of parents of children with special needs do send them to private schools.
And about comprehensives is they cannot, if you look at the old secondary modern schools which they replaced, which was slandered and which were in many cases often quite good and almost invariably better than comprehensives, they were much smaller. It's much easier to control a small school.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, which
especially when they get to a certain age,
not often discussed in our education system, is how since the Second World War particularly, the school leaving age has been raised and raised and raised and raised. And people say, well, it's great, people spend more time at school. Well,
it's now about 35, isn't it?
People, there are people who describe the expansion of the universities as raising the school leaving age to 21. They weren't far off. But there are a lot of people who don't want to be at school.
No.
And if you force them to stay at school, then they don't fit in. And it means the big disorder problems.
And they behave badly because they're too old to be at school.
In a school of 700, 800, 1,000 pupils, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And one of Catherine Birbalsing's great achievements in the Michaela School is in a large school to keep order. But that's largely done because of her immense force of personality.
And because she is an absolute disciplinarian. But the thing is, I think that particularly, and I also think there's a problem in schools around age of pupils. And it's very easy to control a bunch of 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds. It's not very easy to control a bunch of 15-year-olds, which is what you're asking these schools to do.
There are some children who are better off in single-sex schools. In the comprehensive system, although there are some girls' schools still in the comprehensive system, I think our current Chancellor of the Exchequer went to one. There aren't many. And there are very few boys-only schools now. And I think there are some children who are better suited to that. And I think there should be provision in the state sector for it. And when the grammar schools still existed, quite a lot of schools were single-sex.
Yeah.
My wife's school, Mary Datchler, in southeast London, was one of those. And for some people, it was good. Whereas the comprehensive system, like a bulldozer, tends to just create nothing but very big.
You get quite a lot
schools.
of single-sex church schools still. Church of England schools, My daughter went.
I think quite a lot might be a bit of exaggeration.
Yeah, but they're not straightforward single-sex schools either. But I
Sixth form, they often take.
Yes, but I think the whole way the exam system and the points at which you are examined is structured, none of it really works.
Well, it bears very little nature to the needs of the people. And,
exactly.
And when they get sent on to university to become lifelong debtors and to be delayed from embarking on a career so long after they should have started, it actually sets them back.
I completely agree. And I think also the idea of forcing children with special education needs to learn alongside children without special education needs is difficult. It's complicated. They're not all the same. They're all very different.
Going to work.
No.
And there's much more room in a tripartite system, as Harry elaborated, for different types of children than there is in a comprehensive system, which by its nature and name treats everybody as if they were the same when they just aren't.
No, absolutely. No, it is just a sausage factory, really, isn't it?
And sausages aren't very good.
No, they're not. Dear Sarah and Peter, after weeks of listening to your excellent podcast, it seems to have leached into my psyche enough that peculiar things are starting to happen. Peter, I'm sure you'll be perturbed to know, and I don't blame you if you are, that I dreamt I visited your house recently. As alarming as this may sound, I was amazed, within said dream, to find you had some houses made out of giant toadstools in the back garden, plus some
my
fairies.
My secret is out.
Plus some fairies fluttering around the ferns by a pond. You also had a large library of books in the lounge and a fantastic collection. I love this idea of you as a sort of fairy wizard king. You also had a large library.
I think I'd prefer elf.
Yes, chief elf. You also had a large library of books in the lounge and a fantastic collection of teas from around the world. Were any of them museum worthy? One of which was selected and brewed in an enormous red teapot for us to drink by the pond. You also gave me a copy of something by Tolkien to take home with me from my visit too, but I can't remember what it was exactly. All very normal, obviously. Anyway, sorry if this causes any alarm, but I thought you might like to know you're now influencing people's dreamscapes too. Keep up the good work, folks.
Well, there's one or two points of accuracy in there, but in general, I think it's a bit out. As a dream.
What? So no books, but all the toadstools.
Yeah, that's right. No books, but many toadstools.
I love the fairies as well. It's brilliant.
Bottom of the garden.
I mean, that is how I imagine your home to be.
Is it?
Yes, very much so. Yes.
You too.
I sort of see you as a sort of Dumbledore figure. Maybe.
Who's he?
Dumbledore. Oh, come on. You must know who Dumbledore is. Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
He's the sort of.
I know who Harry Potter is.
Okay, so Harry Potter is the sort of he's the sort of
young man with glasses.
Yes, Dumbledore is the headmaster of the school for wizards that they all go to.
I never got that far.
He's very sage and sound, right. And he has a phoenix, I think, in his study.
I don't.
And a beard.
One of those.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're nearly there then.
We are basically there, yes.
Same person.
You are literally Dumbledore. Well, Kit, good luck. There have been several references to Mr. Hitchens' love of poetry in the last few weeks, sparked by the listener who recalled Peter's appearance on QT when it was still worth watching. I do remember that episode well, and what struck me at the time was the refusal of any of the others to recite. Would this be because of a reluctance to appear elitist?
No, they didn't know anything.
No, they didn't know the poems, did they?
Absolutely did not. It was quite clear.
They didn't know any poems.
Emily Thornberry, James Morrison, and then she dried up.
Weatherby George
and the others couldn't.
Took great care of his mother, even though he was only
three. When he was only 3. Never go down to the end of town without consulting me. But no, none of them could do it. And what was fascinating also was that afterwards, David Dimbleby in the car to Darlington, where we were all staying, was completely. He said, "How on earth did you learn to do that?" And this is a man, I think, who went to Charterhouse.
I know, but
absolutely astonished.
Yeah,
and older than I am by some years. Absolutely astonished that none of them had anything in them at all, or even willing to have it. It was certainly not for fear of appearing elitist.
But I think you may have a photographic memory. I find it very hard to memorize poems.
I do not have a photographic memory.
My son has. If I can read something once and memorize it, I just can't do that.
Well, my brother could memorize large chunks of Shakespeare, which I can't do. If I set out to memorize it, often I know poems vaguely, and I decide that I will know them properly. I just set out to do it and fill in the gaps. So the other day, for instance, I forced myself to learn Jabberwocky from start to finish.
Oh, go on, do it.
All right, let's do that. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his Vorpal's sword in hand. Long time the manxome foe he sought. Then rested he by a tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the Vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He struck it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy, Callooh, Calais. O frabjous day, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe.
That is brilliant.
But isn't.
That is genius.
It is a wonderful poem.
No, but you are brilliant.
First appears in mirror writing.
Okay.
She sees it through, before she climbs through the looking glass, she sees it in the book, in mirror writing.
It is, no, but
many of the words in it, I'm not sure about Burble, but many of the words in it were not English words when he wrote it, and they got.
And they have now become English words.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I got you. I mean, that's it. That's the end of the episode.
I've always loved the Vorpal blade when snicker-snack.
Snicker-snack. Yes, I can always do the first 2 lines of something, but I can never remember the rest.
A couple of weeks ago, I couldn't have done that, but I thought I've got to get this straight, and it didn't take long. It's the beginning that's always the difficulty. Once it then flows on.
You do it beautifully.
It's sweet of you to say so.
Anyway, if you'd like to be involved in more emails and when you make more requests of Peter to learn more poems, I'm sure there'll be several.
It's good for me.
It's good for you. It's good for his brain.
What I really want to to learn is the Ballad of the Revenge by Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Okay.
It's long.
It's long.
Take up an entire podcast, but my goodness, it's good.
It would be good. Please email your suggestions, elas@mailonline.co.uk. Thank you for listening to Alas Vine and mainly Hitchens. We'll be back next week. Don't forget to check out this week's reading list, watch list, share the books, TVs and film you think we would want to watch or read. For that or anything else, you can contact us. Email alas@mailonline.co.uk, leave a comment on Spotify or send us a voice note on WhatsApp on 07796 657 512. Start your message with the word alas.